Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Don Ma. Our top story. Chinese combat troops fed on American pork. Major meat suppliers in China reportedly hoarding rations for the regime's military, all made possible through a U.S. subsidiary. A bipartisan push against TikTok getting a unanimous thumbs up from a U.S. House panel. The move aims to ban the Chinese-owned social media platform from app stores unless it separates from its Chinese parent company. The FBI arrests a Chinese national accused of stealing Google's AI trade secrets. A newly unsealed indictment reveals details about the charges, including ties to two Chinese-linked tech companies. And Chinese people are reporting rising death tolls around them, but the stories remain notably absent from Chinese state media. NTD spoke to some of them for more.
How many people have actually died? China's communist authorities, don't dare disclose it.
Truckloads of American pork going straight into the bellies of Chinese soldiers. A new investigative report exposes links between the largest U.S. pork producer and its Chinese sister company. Here's the inside scoop from Philip Lenzicki, an investigative reporter from the Daily Caller News Foundation.
This is concerning, obviously, because all along, Smithfield has been supplying Shuanghui with, on average, hundreds of thousands of tons of pork each year.
According to a Daily Caller report, that's how much pork Virginia-based Smithfield Foods has sent to its Chinese sister from Shuanghui after being acquired in 2013. Shuanghui is known for its sausages and has been designated a food supplier for the regime's military. Within its corporate structure, Shuanghui runs a so-called mobilization center to stockpile rations for troops in case of an emergency response.
The mobilization center explicitly serves the People's Liberation Army. It stockpiles food and pork for the People's Liberation Army and also develops certain types of products for the People's Liberation Army, specifically rations.
What's more, the sausage firm also partnered up with the Aviation Industry Corporation of China, a state-owned defense contractor closely affiliated with the People's Liberation Army. Washington has previously sanctioned AVIC just for that connection. Aside from Shuanghui, the report shows Smithfield also exported massive amounts of products to its Chinese parent company, WH Group. The firm's chairman and top executives are all, without exception, CCP members who have served as public officials. China has only 7 to 9% of the world's arable land, but houses 1/5 of the global population. A war scenario would risk China's ability to feed its own people. So what's the plan? Reports point to Beijing's extensive purchases of American farmland, livestock, seeds, and food supply lines such as Smithfield Food. Within just 2 years, Smithfield's exports to China have skyrocketed from about 80,000 tons in 2018 to over 300,000 tons in 2020.
Shuanghui also runs a quote-unquote people's militia, and that the mobilization center has approximately 2,200 Shuanghui employees running it who are former Chinese military veterans. It's very possible that Shuanghui is employing essentially, paramilitary soldiers to some extent. And when we put this all together and we look at what you might call the incestuous relationship between WH Group, Shuanghui, and Smithfield's executives, this becomes quite concerning.
Shuanghui sees its sister company as a primary pork supplier, with 80% of its imported meat coming from Smithfield. The FBI arresting a Chinese national in California for allegedly stealing AI trade secrets from Google during his time at the company. Attorney General Merrick Garland says suspect Lin Wei Ding is charged with 4 counts of trade secret theft. An indictment unsealed on Wednesday accuses Ding of being secretly affiliated with two China-based tech companies, including one that he founded. It alleges Ding uploaded over 500 files with confidential information into a personal Google Cloud account about 3 years after he started working there. The indictment also cites a document from Ding's startup company that was sent to investors, boasting of experience with Google's AI. The document stated that the startup just has to replicate and upgrade the technology. From there, it could further develop it into a platform suited to China's national conditions. If convicted, Ding faces up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine for each of the 4 counts, for a maximum $1 million. Is it the end for TikTok in America? As of Thursday, China's ByteDance has 6 months to divest from short video app TikTok or face a U.S. ban. A U.S. House committee just approved the measure. Let's zoom in.
The bill, receiving unanimous support from 50 Congress members, has been approved by the U.S. House Energy and Commerce Committee. Next, the bill will come before the full U.S. House in the coming weeks. Prior to Thursday's vote, lawmakers got a briefing on safety concerns stemming from the app's Chinese ownership. TikTok protested the bill, telling its users that Congress is, quote, planning a total ban of TikTok. The bill demands that TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, give up control of the app. If it does not, TikTok will be taken off U.S. app stores. The chairman of the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party calls the measure a surgery designed to remove the tumor and thereby save the patient in the process. The White House praised the proposal, but getting legislation approved in an election year may prove difficult. Just last month, President Biden's campaign joined TikTok to attract younger voters. Biden's campaign account is one of 170 million TikTok users in the U.S. That's half the U.S. population.
China's shift in rhetoric on Taiwan, a surge in defense spending, and President Biden's executive order to safeguard sensitive data from Beijing. What does it all mean? Joining us now to discuss the latest development is Andrew Thornbrook, National Security Correspondent for the Epoch Times. Andrew Thornbrook, National Security Correspondent for the Epoch Times, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what I wanted to start off with is China dropping peaceful reunification reference to Taiwan and raising defense spending by hundreds of billion dollars here. What's your perspective on this to begin?
Yeah, well, I think we're finally just seeing the facade drop, right? There's never really been a huge dedication to peaceful unification with Taiwan from the Chinese Communist Party. At best, peaceful unification would still involve a massive amount of propaganda, cyber attacks, electoral interference, and these kinds of things. So I think to that end, on the propaganda front, peaceful unification has been a non sequitur for a long time. But this sort of dropping of the phraseology is a real admission, I think, of China's ambitions, particularly of Xi Jinping's ambitions to finally bring Taiwan into the mainlands, and after all these years since the Civil War.
So President Joe Biden signed an executive order to prevent hostile nations from purchasing the sensitive data of U.S. residents. I want to know, how effective will this be actually at stopping Beijing from getting this data?
This is a sort of weakness we've had forever. And it's one of the biggest complaints I've heard from people in the technology sector, particularly people working at the intersection of national security and technology, is that while there's been a huge focus on companies like TikTok, who are perhaps drawing out data directly to companies with ties to the Chinese Communist Party, it's perfectly legal for any company in the United States to harvest this data from Americans, sell it to a data broker, and then sell that same data directly to China. They don't need an in with these companies. They can just buy the data. So I think this is really a long overdue executive order.
Andrew, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Election interference from the Chinese Communist Party, concerns over it have come to a head in the U.S. and Taiwan in recent months. But now, a country in Europe is coming toe-to-toe with the issue, and it's a strong supporter of Taiwan. 2024 is the election year. People in more than 60 countries have or will head to the polls. Experts accuse China of interfering in the presidential election of its democratic neighbor, Taiwan, back in January. And they generally believe the same will happen in the US during November's general election. And that's not all. Lithuania said on Thursday that Beijing's interference in Lithuanian elections definitely cannot be ruled out due to the country's strong support for Taiwan. The Chinese Communist Party claims Taiwan as its own territory and has threatened to take it over by force if necessary, even though it has never ruled the island. Taiwan has its own democratically elected government and constitution. Only a dozen countries maintain diplomatic relations with Taiwan due to pressure from Beijing. European travelers, take note. China will extend its visa exemption policy to 6 countries in Europe on a trial basis starting next week. China's top diplomat Wang Yi announced the news on Thursday. The visa exemption includes Switzerland, Ireland, Hungary, Austria, Belgium, and Luxembourg. The announcement is the latest in the visa-free scheme from China looking to boost foreign tourism amid a sluggish economy. In January, China signed an agreement with Thailand and Singapore to permanently waive visa requirements for each other's citizens. And last November, China offered visitors from France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, and Malaysia to enter visa-free for 15 days. How many deaths has the COVID-19 pandemic really caused in China? More Chinese citizens are reporting continued deaths around them, alongside allegations that authorities are still concealing the truth. We interviewed several Chinese citizens for details. Here's what they told us.
A Chinese citizen living in Beijing reported that friends who had otherwise been in good health suddenly passed away.
I know 5 or 6 people who were strong as bulls, but they just suddenly passed away. It's all heart-related, and it happened very quickly. The oldest among them was 60, but most were in their 40s or 50s. The many recent deaths are very likely related to the pandemic. Everyone feels insecure after getting vaccinated by Chinese-made vaccine.
Some suspect Chinese-made vaccine against COVID-19 might be contributing. Chinese citizens have been forced to get vaccinated, and the only jabs available in the country are domestic ones. Western experts and vaccine safety advocates have pointed to Chinese-made jabs as having low efficacy and possible safety concerns.
I've always believed the vaccine is the cause. If you didn't get this shot, you couldn't go out, couldn't go to work, couldn't go to the supermarket, so basically all young people got 3 shots. And then they would get inexplicably recurrent colds and that kind of white lung condition.
The term white lung has become a popular way to refer to pneumonia. A patient's lungs will appear white on an X-ray if they fill with fluid, a common symptom among those sickened with the infection. Many are also accusing the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, of covering up the country's true COVID-19 pandemic death toll. Foreign media and researchers have been rejected from entering China for independent investigations.
How many people have actually died? China's communist authorities, don't dare disclose it. Many of their actions are really despicable.
Beyond Chinese citizens, foreign researchers and overseas media outlets are still working to uncover China's actual death toll. Based on those investigations, total number of COVID-19 deaths in China could exceed millions of people. We'll keep you updated as the situation develops.
And that's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform Epoch TV where you can watch our full episodes. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Drug smuggling, human trafficking, and money laundering. A U.S. senator shares what he uncovered about a Chinese mafia group operating here in America.
We now have more massage parlors than we do Starbucks coffee cafes.
Europe says no to more products made with forced labor. What does the New Deal mean for trade relations between Europe and China? And the EU is probing Chinese-made electric cars. Those imports could soon face tougher tariffs in Europe. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Thank you for watching China in Focus. I'm Don Ma. See you soon.